Hey everyone, here's the showcase of the Lash Mage. The Lash Mage is focused on stunning our enemies and keeping our shields up while maintaining a good amount of damage. For our primary attack, I am using Lash. This provides good damage and makes me stun everything in front of me for 2 seconds. Whenever I critically strike, I get an additional hit. Whenever I hit a stunned enemy, I get 0.15 seconds off of my cooldowns. With this setup, we do not use any core abilities. I use Flame Shield to break free from crowd control effects and to heal. It does add damage, but I do not focus on that. I use Teleport to break free of crowd control effects, make distance between me and the player, and to do a little bit of extra damage if I'm teleporting directly onto a player. I use Ice Armor for an extra barrier and to crowd control my enemies. I use Frost Nova to crowd control and make my enemies vulnerable. I use the passive Elemental Attunement. This is used to get my cooldowns all the way to 0. This works for Frost Nova, Teleport, Flame Shield, Ice Armor. All these things help me either get out of crowd control or apply more crowd control. I use the passive Glass Cannon also. This puts out more damage, but I do take more damage as a result. I take the passive Precision Magic. This just helps with my lucky hit chance. I don't use too many things with lucky hit, but I do have a few that are pretty important, so I figured spend 3 points, get 15%, and it has helped, but I might switch it out in the long run. I haven't quite decided yet. I have 1 into Align Elements just so I can get the Protection passive. Protection passive is really good for this build because we're using a lot of skills with cooldowns. Usually we're using the shields with cooldowns, so we're just basically double shielding whenever we use a cooldown. I took the Icy Veil passive here, and it really helps with the duration of all my barriers. Just all around pretty good skill. I put 1 into Static Discharge so I could get 3 into Shock and Impact. This is really good because our build is focused around stunning our enemies. Every time we stun an enemy, we are putting out a lot of damage. As my ultimate, I have Unstable Currents. This is really good just for straight damage output, and with Prime Unstable Currents, we get more attack speed, and with more attack speed, we can use our Lash to proc on that 10 hit to stun an enemy. When we stun an enemy, we do the Shock and Impact, doing more damage. And then I have Supreme Unstable Currents also. This skill is kind of in the middle for me. I use it, but I'm thinking about taking it off. I haven't quite decided yet. I have Coursing Current so I can get Electrocution. Electrocution is really good for just flat damage reduction. And then I have Convulsions, and that's really good just because we are a stun build and we want to get as many procs of stun as we can. And as our mastery, we're going to get the only one that applies to us, and it's going to help us with close damage, resistance against shock and damage, and it's going to have a stacking effect on top of that. In our enchantment slots, we're going to have Arc Lash. This is every time we use a cooldown, we're going to stun our enemies. We're all about getting stuns as many procs as we can, so whenever we stun, we do damage. If we do get the stun off in the crowd control them, then they can't heal. We're doing damage, and it's just all around good there. And then in our other slot, we're going to have the Flame Shield, so if we were to die, we would just not die, and we love that. Looking at the gear for the Lash Mage, we're going to be starting off with the helm. I am looking for basic attack speed and cooldown reduction on the helm for the affixes, the stats that come on the helm. And then as the legendary aspect, I got the damage in elite, grants a barrier, so really good just to absorb more damage for survivability, and it also contributes to helping us when we have a barrier active, certain things are procced. On the armor, I was looking at the shock skill damage, I was looking at the crowd control reduction, I was looking at the willpower, and a little bit of fire damage. It helped. It wasn't something I was really looking for, but it did help overall. And then for the legendary effect, the aspect, I gain life for each enemy that's close to me, and I found this very helpful. On the gloves, I was just searching for as much attack speed as I could get. I got a stat with attack speed. Everything else on there is really good, but I was focused on getting the attack speed, and then I put a legendary aspect on there to get more attack speed. For the pants, I was just focused on getting as much damage reduction as I can because I realized pants can have a lot of different roles for damage reduction and also dodge chance. So those are all the stats I was looking for when I found these pants. And then when I got a legendary aspect that basic skills grant me 20% damage reduction, it just fit really well with the build. So those pants are just all damage reduction. On the boots, I was just looking for some skills like Flame Shield, Teleport. I was hoping for Frost Nova, but 2 out of the 3 is great. And then I also got some dodge chance on there with a max evade charge, so those were pretty good for me. And then I put a legendary aspect on there that lets me move through people when I have Flame Shield active, and it also immobilized them, which was really nice too. So that all worked really well for my build, so I kept these on. So with my weapons on the old PvP videos, I was using a wand, but once I figured out that a dagger has damage to close enemies, I switched to a dagger. They roll a whole bunch of good stuff on your weapons. You can get damage to close enemies, you can get basic skill damage, you can get a bunch of stuff that really helps with the damage output. And then the imprint, the legendary aspect, I just put a 10% primary resource damage thing on there. So my primary resource is always full, so I'm always going to have 10% flat damage, which is really nice. So for offhand, I was looking for basic skill damage, basic attack speed, and I love that it comes with a cooldown reduction on top of all that. And then I imprinted it with a distant enemies have a chance to be stunned, but then the real thing I'm looking at here is you deal more damage when someone is stunned. So that's a huge damage increase. We're trying to stun people. When they are stunned, they can't do anything, they can't heal, and we are doing extra damage when they are stunned. So on the rings, I was looking for stats that just increased my damage. They tend to roll really nicely for that kind of stuff, and I got lucky with this one, and then I imprinted it with a legendary aspect, and I was really focused on when I'm healthy, I increase my crowd control duration, and I really like that effect. And also when someone's injured, I can do more critical strike to them, so that's also a nice thing. But I want to keep people stunned as long as I can, and that's what I was going for here. And again, on this ring for the stats, just damage, 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 and then I imprinted it with when I have a barrier active, which most of the time I do, I'm dealing more flat damage, which is always nice. For the amulet, for stats wise, I like the willpower, damage reduction from close enemies, crowd control duration reduction, that's always nice. I imprinted it with the bubble shield, and the bubble shield lasts for a couple seconds and makes me immune. The downside is there's a 90-second cooldown on that bubble shield, but I still find this item in imprint very nice. So most of the items I showed were the items I was using in the previous PvP videos. Some of the items changed. The helm changed. I found a helm that had attack speed, and that's what I'm currently wearing. The old helm did not have attack speed on it. Both my rings are different rings from those videos. Also, one was actually, I looked at it, it was a level 9 ring, and the other ring that I was wearing just was not good. It didn't have any good stats, but they all 3 of those items had the same legendary aspect. I also changed out, I had a different offhand and a different wand instead of a dagger, so those items also got changed out from the previous PvP videos, but all the aspects are the same as those videos. So these are the items I was using before. I was trying to keep it as much as the same as my old videos when I was showing you guys the PvP stuff that I was playing, but I have upgraded some gear, and these are the things I've upgraded.